Hi, friends. My name is Toni Cureton. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Life Skills FYI. Life Skills FYI provides a set of core adult capabilities to manage work, family, and relationships successfully. It's designed to help build the skills that adults need for life. Life Skills FYI teaches skills of planning, awareness, focus, self-control, and flexibility. They are daily living skills to promote successful, independent living, skills that every adult should know, but were never taught in school. Life Skills FYI premieres on Thursdays at 10 a.m. on our My Virtual Academy Facebook page. Today, we are going to talk about how to properly store food. Nobody likes throwing food away. Whether you've tossed it into your fridge and forgot about it, or you bought some fruit or vegetables on a whim and didn't get around to preparing them before they went bad. Wasting food or money is not a good feeling. The good news is that there are many ways to preserve and store food to increase its shelf life and increase the likelihood that you'll use it. Not only that, but food storage done properly is good for your wallet. It saves you time and can even add flavor and nutritional value to your food. With billions in food being wasted each year, it's time to be smart about the environment as well as our finances. Following these simple food storage practices can help to reduce your food bills by hundreds of dollars per year and save you time. Let's talk about storing food at room temperature. We should always use the FIFO system, FIFO. FI, first in, FO, first out. This is a common catchphrase that's used in restaurant kitchens to make sure that the food they serve stays fresh. For home cooks, this means that canned goods, boxed goods, and other non-perishable supplies should be dated with the date that they were purchased on, and this will ensure that the newer item isn't being opened first. Next, we should store our produce on our counters in order to ripen. Fruit should be left to ripen on the counter, either out in the open or loosely in an open plastic bag to promote ripening. Once the fruit has reached its desired level of ripeness, put it into the refrigerator to extend the life of the fruit. Bananas produce something called ethylene, which speeds the ripening process of other fruits. So you can take advantage of this property and store them in a plastic bag together with a fruit that needs to be ripened. This is an excellent technique that you can use on avocados. Never pack fruit into an airtight container on the counter, or they will quickly spoil. Keep an eye out for signs of bruising or overripeness in your fruits, and remove rotten fruit quickly to avoid it from spoiling the rest of your fruit. Next, storing your rice and your grains, your beans and your oatmeal. These dry goods can be kept in your kitchen cabinets in tightly sealed containers. Glass jars or plastic containers, they're perfect for storing these bulk items in your cabinets or pantries. If you store rice and other grains in plastic bags, you need to be wary of mealworms, because small holes in bags can allow mealworms and moths to breed, ruining your food. So it's always best to keep these types of items in tightly sealed jars or containers. Next, how to store your root vegetables. If your vegetables grow underground, then it doesn't need to go into the refrigerator. Potatoes, onions, and garlic should be kept in cool, dark, and dry places, not in the refrigerator. If you want to keep them in anything, put them in a paper bag and set them on the counter. Next, how to store fresh bread. If you put some freshly baked, crusty bread, keep it in a paper bag out on the counter to help keep it as fresh as long as possible. Bread on the counter properly stored should be good for 3 to 5 days, which extends to 7 to 14 days if you put it in the refrigerator. It's also fine to freeze bread, especially soft sandwich bread. It will extend its life. Next, let's talk about refrigerated foods. You should always keep your refrigerator at the most optimum temperature. Refrigerators should be set at or below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The food temperature danger zone, the temperature range where bacteria thrives, is between 41 and 140 degrees. Any food that is left out in these temperatures is susceptible to bacterial growth, which could cause foodborne illness. Always get cooked food put away as soon as possible. Make sure that you check the temperature of your refrigerator on a regular basis. The temperature can fluctuate depending upon how much food is in your refrigerator or how often you open your refrigerator door. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on the temperature to make sure that everything is correct. Next, keep your refrigerated food in the refrigerator. Some food items can be stored in a cabinet sometimes, and sometimes they need to be stored in the refrigerator. So, items like pickles and salad dressing or ketchup, for those items, the rule of thumb is that if you buy something cold from the refrigerated section, then it needs to stay in the refrigerator. Items such as pickles and salad dressing and ketchup, they're fine to keep in the cabinet or in your pantry or at room temperature until you open them, at which point they will then need to be refrigerated. You should also refrigerate canned goods after opening them. No matter what it is, from cooked ravioli to green beans, once you open the can, you'll have to refrigerate the food item after you open the can. And always transfer the food from the can into a tightly lidded storage container. Don't just stick the can in the refrigerator. Next, let's talk about hot cooked food. Say you just get finished cooking a pot of chili, but you're not going to eat it or serve it until tomorrow. So it needs to go into the refrigerator. After your food is cooked, first you'll need to transfer your chili out of your big old pot to a large, shallow container and refrigerate it. Make sure you cover the container either with loosely fitting plastic wrap or aluminum foil, or you can cover it with paper towel until the food has cooled down. Then take the shallow container and transfer the chili from the shallow container into smaller containers that you can label and either put in the refrigerator to be eaten within the next few days, or you can put it in the freezer and serve it at a later date. The reason why you put it in a large shallow container is because it will cool the entire pot of chili uniformly and evenly, and it will take a shorter period of time to do so. So this pan that you see this turkey in, this is what we would call a large shallow container. This bowl that you see the peppers in, this would be an example of a cooking pot that you would cook the chili in because it's deep, it's tall and it's deep. You cook it in tall and deep, but you cool it in short and shallow. Next, after the food, like I say, after the food is cooled down, then you break that shallow pan of chili into smaller containers, date them and label them, and either use them in the next few days in the refrigerator for your meals, or you can date and freeze them and use them at a later date. If you place hot food, especially dishes that contain meat, in a covered container and then put them immediately into the refrigerator, the condensation that will form will cause the dish to spoil quickly. Condensation allows bacteria growth. So that's why you take it from a deep pot to a shallow pot. Following these practices will eliminate the chance of foodborne illness in your food. Next, let's talk about storing meat. Consume all of your meat dishes, or package them up and freeze them within the first 5 to 7 days after you purchase the meat from the grocery store. If you can't get through your leftovers fast enough, consider freezing them and defrosting them at a later time when there's less food in your refrigerator. Raw meats should always be refrigerated, should always be kept separate from cooked meats and other products, and should be loosely wrapped in plastic in a container in the refrigerator. Make sure that you watch for signs of spoilage, because spoiled meat will begin to turn gray and brown, and they will give off an unpleasant odor. So let's talk about how to properly store eggs. Eggs that you buy from the grocery store should be kept in the refrigerator until they're ready to be used. Watch for signs of spoilage after cracking them. Always make sure that you crack them over an empty bowl instead of breaking them onto your food that you're preparing. If you purchase fresh laid eggs from the farmer's market, make sure that you asked if they've been washed and ask for guidance on proper storage of your eggs. Also, there are some refrigerators that come with slots in the refrigerator door for eggs. That is not a recommended place to put your eggs. The storage space in a refrigerator door is the least coldest part of your refrigerator. And again, proper refrigerator temperature for food, especially eggs, is 40 degrees or below. So when you purchase your eggs, whether they're from the store or the farmer's market, put them inside the refrigerator towards the back and not in the door. Also, for your cut vegetables like leafy greens and tomatoes and fruit, as well as other vegetables, you can keep them in the refrigerator once you cut them. But make sure that you put them in a sealed plastic container. That way you'll keep them as fresh as long as possible. And you might also want to add a sheet of paper towel in there to absorb any excess moisture. Keep your tomatoes out of the fridge. Leave them on your counter unless they've been sliced. They're perfectly fine on the counter. Putting them in the refrigerator causes them to be watery. So if you've sliced them, put them in a plastic sealed container, put them in the refrigerator. But if you just put your whole tomatoes in the refrigerator, you tend to make the insides more watery. So it's okay to leave them on the counter. Next, let's talk about freezing food. Whatever the item you're going to freeze, the best way to protect it is to either use a vacuum seal or Ziploc bags that have all of the air squeezed out of them. This prevents freezer burn, which occurs when items become both frozen and dried out. The goal is to create an airtight barrier around the meat. You will prevent air from getting into and out of the package this way. Most grocery store packaging, it's not meant to prevent freezer burn, and it's also not meant to store your food in the freezer over a long period of time. So when you purchase food, repackage it. And the absolute best method is to vacuum seal it or to put it in a Ziploc bag and make sure that you squeeze out all of the air. Plastic containers, they're also effective at storing different foods, especially if there's liquid involved, like soups, stews, liquid from your meat, berries that, have liquid in them. Containers are better for these than Ziploc bags because it's more easily, you're easily able to defrost it. If you have it in a Ziploc bag, if you have chili or soup in a Ziploc bag, when it goes to unthaw, it might begin to, to leak. If you have it in a plastic container, then you eliminate it leaking all over the place. Also, make sure that you freeze your food in the, in the correct amount sizes. Don't freeze a large bowl or vat of chili. Break those down into individual portions that you can take for lunches or eat as single meal, for a single meal. You don't want to freeze an entire roast. Cut it up, slice it up, and freeze it in portions. And make sure you date and label it, of course. When food items are in your freezer, without a date or label, it becomes, especially over time, it becomes harder to read or to recognize what food item that is. If you date and label everything, then you'll know exactly what you have. Next, we're going to talk about how to freeze raw or cooked meat. Raw or cooked meat will usually last from 6 months to a year in the freezer. However, after 6 months, the meat product begins to break down and dry out. So you have, until a year. It's still safe to eat, but after 6 months, it might begin to start to taste like the freezer or lose its flavor. So keep that in mind when you're storing raw or cooked meat. Next, how to freeze frozen vegetables. The best way to freeze frozen vegetables is to blanch them off first. When it comes to the unthawing part, if you just put raw vegetables into the freezer, when you go to unthaw, they're going to be kind of mushy. So to avoid that, what professional chefs recommend is that you blanch your vegetable. That means that you bring a pot of boiling salted water to a rolling boil, a vigorous boil. Then you take whatever vegetable you're going to freeze and drop it in that boiling water for about 1 minute to 2 minutes long, and then quickly remove those vegetables and then dump them immediately into a pot of ice water. Stir them around, let them cool off. What that does is when you drop it in the hot boiling water, it partially cooks the vegetable, but not fully. When you pull it out and put it in the ice water, it then stops the cooking and it seals the state of your vegetable. Then you can take it and dry it off, put it in your freezer bags, or your containers and put it in the freezer to be frozen. Then when you go to unthaw them, they won't be mushy like if you were to just take the vegetables, cut it up, put it in a bag, and put it in the freezer. They'll still have that al dente, that crunch. So that's the best way to freeze your vegetables. Make sure that you you break the large amount down to portion sizes, label and date it. That way you can have these meals for dinner, for lunches, and they'll be in smaller batches for you to be able to consume. So these are the advantages of going through these food storage safety practices. If you follow these practices, you will reduce your food waste because your food won't be spoiling so quickly. And your frozen vegetables taste like mush, or your meat, your chicken freezer burn because air got in. You reduce your food waste. This will save you money. This is better for the environment. We're not filling our landfills with all of this food and debris. Next, your fruits and vegetables, they'll stay fresher longer. Again, saving you money. You should have the mindset that everything you purchase, you want to consume. And if you manage it right and store it properly, you will be able to take advantage of every dollar that you invest in your food purchases. You can also buy things in bulk in large sizes, or you can buy things that are in season, like cherries. Cherries, their season is June. If you buy cherries in June and you freeze them, you can eat them in December, or you can eat them in February when there are no cherries out, because you took a moment, bought in bulk, and you froze it properly, and you are now treating yourself with a wonderful summer treat that can only really be gotten in the summertime. You can also use canning methods to preserve your food. And you can view it as a new hobby for you and your family. And you all can collectively come together and pick out different fruits and vegetables that you want to can and preserve. And you'll have them, that you'll be able to consume them at any time. As you see in this picture here, someone's pantry is stocked with different fruits and vegetables. Now, they can take these items camping and eat. If there's a power outage, they still have food, great food that's available to them that they'll be able to consume. These are all benefits of taking a moment to either store food properly in containers, vacuum sealed packages, or Ziploc bags, or if you can your food and your fruits and vegetables. Another thing that you can do, a method of preserving food, is through fermentation. And if you do that, especially with things like cabbage, you can make dishes like kimchi or beets, things like that. Those food items, they come with an added benefit of having microbiomes within the food that's good for your intestinal digestion. It's almost like a probiotic. So learning to store food properly is an essential part of saving money and keeping yourself and your family safe. And if you follow these safe food storage practices, you can significantly help reduce food waste in your homes and your communities. Well, friends, that is all my time for today. Thanks so much for tuning in to Life Skills FYI. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My number is 586-842-0558. That's 586-842-0558. Again, my name is Toni Cureton. Thanks again for tuning in, and remember to always remember to adult responsibly.